Everyone. So I've been filming these devotions on the first day of lockdown. So my hope is that you're now watching this on what will be the final week of lockdown. Let's see. But I'm hoping that is the case and that you have throughout this lockdown been able to dig deep and to encounter God and try out things like prayer and fasting and reflecting on the gospel, the good news of Jesus. This week we're doing something slightly different in that we're going to work through a whole book. Now, don't panic. This is it. It's the book of Jonah. And on my in my Bible, it's literally that is it on 2 pages. So I'm not asking loads, and it's just a really good practice sometimes to read all the way through a book. What kind of book is Jonah? Often we kind of, I guess, think of it as that kid story about the whale that this guy ends up, writing poetry in its belly, right? But actually, it's so much more than that. What you need to know about Jonah is that he appears in one other verse in the Bible in 2 Kings, and he prophesies in favour of a king called Jeroboam II, and kind of says, you're going to flourish. God is going to bless you. But the reality is he was wrong. He wasn't a good prophet. He made an epic mistake to the point where another prophet called Amos, it's a good name, by the way, isn't it? Amos actually had to go and sort it out and tell the king the truth, that actually he was going to experience God's judgment because he was so cruel and evil, this king. And so as we start reading the book of Jonah, we need to have this in mind. This is a historical figure who is a terrible prophet. He's meant to speak on God's behalf, but he often doesn't. And so what some people have suggested about the book of Jonah is that it's a bit of political satire. In other words, it's meant to be quite funny. What they've done is they've taken this historical figure and put him into ridiculous situations to see how he will act under extreme pressure. So we're meant to kind of laugh as we read this, but as we laugh at Jonah, and comedy often does this, we laugh and then we suddenly feel a bit uncomfortable because we're like, oh, actually, that's a bit close to home. Like, I'm laughing at Jonah in this situation, but the truth is that's probably how I would act as well. And so as you're reading through Jonah, try and look for the jokes, but then ask yourself, how is this kind of reading into your own experience and into your own heart? So God says to Jonah, I want you to go to the great city of Nineveh. You'll notice that everything is great. Everything is blown out of proportion. Everything's huge and great and amazing. Look out for those key words. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against them because their evil has kind of come up before me. And so here's Jonah's task. Now, you need to know about Nineveh is that they skinned their enemies alive. They did child sacrifice and they did loads of horrendous stuff. Like, these are people really deserving of God's judgment. And what does Jonah do? He's like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And what we read at the beginning in verse 3 is that Jonah ran away from the Lord. And he wants to go to Tarshish, and he does that via the port of Joppa. Now, literally, if you look at a map, Nineveh is this way, and the way he goes is 180 degrees the opposite direction. This is meant to be a bit funny. He is running in the opposite direction that God sends him to go on. But what happens next, you'll notice, is look for the words as you read through chapter 1 today, the words down and deep. Because what happens is, although Jonah thinks that he's running for his life by going the opposite way and running towards safety, what ends up happening is he actually ends up going down. He goes down to Joppa, where he goes down into a ship, where he lies down to go into a deep sleep. And then we all know what happens in the next section, where he goes down into the sea and down into the belly of a giant fish. And I wonder if that's, we kind of laugh at this, but I wonder if this is our experience as well, that when we actually disobey God, when we run the opposite direction, we think that it's because it's going to be better off. We're going to be more popular or liked better, or, actually we're going to just feel happier. But the reality is, like Jonah, we end up sinking down. We go deeper and deeper. We might feel numb. We feel like we're not really fulfilling our purpose and potential that God has for us. And so look out for these in chapter 1 as you read. Is that your experience as well? And I wonder what it would look like this week for you to turn towards the direction that God has for you, to fulfill the purposes and plans that he has for your life. Enjoy chapter 1 the next couple of days, and I'll see you ready for chapter 2.